and thank you for joining us at the ever-improving No Soundbites Allowed podcast. My name is Michael Vasquez. We thank you for joining us in this adventure of describing the politics that go on in our nation on a personal and local level as often as possible, giving you, the audience, more than just 30 seconds to understand what's going on in our nation. We look forward to joining you as we go. Just sit back, enjoy the ride. Please remember, if you like the episodes, like it, share it, let other people know, and if you can, please donate, even if it's $2, even if it's $5, because it all makes a difference. We thank you, and here we go. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me. This is Michael Voss, the Dragon of the Tier, Southern Tier, and I am happy to be here with you. I appreciate each and every one of you. You guys make it all worthwhile. I say that all the time, and I mean it every time that I say it, because you are the best audience ever, and I love it. I see it every day, and I love the feedback that you all give me. And one of the things I want to give to you guys is a little bit of something special today. We have a guest in the audience with us, and my guest in person in the studio is none other than Rich Purtell of the Libertarian Party. He's been here before. We've had many conversations, and I'm happy to have him here with me again. How are you, Rich?
I'm doing well today. How are you?
I'm doing well, and I'm glad to have you here. It's always fun, and because you always have such an interesting point of view about everything. And it's a little different, and for people who don't know, you're with the Libertarian Party, right?
Correct.
Right. And what's your position with them?
At the state level, I'm the political director. That covers the entire state. In Tioga County, I'm serving as secretary. Melvin Foster is the chair of the county committee in Tioga, and I'm also secretary.
Wow, that's a lot of positions.
Keeps me busy.
I would imagine it does, especially you guys had a great 2018.
Yeah, I mean, we've been working at this for over 40 years, and as a lot of people have heard, Larry Sharp broke the glass ceiling and got over 50,000 votes, which is the way New York State recognizes political parties, is to advance a candidate for governor and have him get more than 50,000 votes. So he broke through that barrier. What that means is moving forward, it will be much, much easier for us to get candidates on the ballot for any local, state, federal race. What's unusual in 2019, however, and this is a year we'll have a lot of local races, is that we will be putting candidates on the ballot by certificate of nomination. We won't do any petitioning at all. And part of why that rule's in place is because a party like SAM, the Serve America movement, which initials happen to match Steffi Miner. Just
by accident.
Just by accident, yeah. So in her situation, so she started up a new party, and there was no one enrolled. So it would be impossible for them to petition in 2019 because there would be no one enrolled at all to sign a petition.
Right.
So they're in a position where they have to, there's no option for them. They have to do it by some other means than petitioning. So for consistency, because oftentimes new parties are booted up in that manner, so for consistency, even in the case of the Libertarian Party, where we've had enrolled Libertarians for a long time, because we finally got triggered this status, we're also doing it by certificate instead of petitioning, just for 2019. Then we go back to the normal method in 2020.
Well, that's good for you guys. So that means this year, because of the changes in the laws that were enacted just this month in January, everybody is switched to a February, March petition period, and then June is for any primaries. That means, well, I don't think there's going to be any primaries within your party, two people for the same position. I think that it makes it easier for you guys because you don't have to go out into the bitter cold this year.
Correct. And then, in terms of the primaries, that's also the exception. So this year we can't have primaries either because we're doing a certificate, and we're not eligible for primaries. But as you said, the legislature just changed the rules a week or two ago to advance all primaries to be synchronized to June, a policy I'm in favor with. One of the few things the legislature has done that I don't think is absurd.
Well, I disagree. Well, one part of that I disagree with is they really didn't think about upstate New York at all when they said, well, we're going to get the petitions in late February, March, which is often very cold and often very snowy, and makes it a lot more difficult. And I think they did that on purpose to make it harder for the other parties, which have a lot more concentration in upstate New York, to be able to get the candidates out there. I mean, they could have put it into March, April, and made the primaries in July, and it would have worked better for everyone. That was my little nitpick on that.
Could be. Yeah, I mean, where it all starts from is we're trying to comply with the MOVE Act. That's the Military and Overseas Voters Empowerment or something like that, whatever that acronym is. So the MOVE Act moved the primaries for federal races back into June a few years ago, right? I forget which year, but it's been a while now.
It's a couple of years. About 10, I think.
It's been a while. So to save on cost, let alone everything else, I mean, instead of having primaries for local and state races in September and then the federal races in June, you got to have all that election staff for both those days.
Right.
There's certainly a cost savings by bringing everything together. And then for petitioning too, you can actually share petitions. You might be able to combine a federal candidate on a petition with a state or local candidate, depending on where they're filed and so on. So you're not duplicating effort. But like you say, the downside is now everybody has to petition real early for local and state races as well as the federal to keep everything working with the calendar. What I didn't approve of in the changes in the voting laws was it was good to move the primaries up, and that'll save money. But the early voting,
10-day early voting,
I don't think that was necessary for 98% of the state. I mean, if you got places where you have an hour-long, 2-hour-long line, maybe it makes sense to help reduce congestion and make it a little easier to get through. But I've been voting for 20-some years in Appalachian. I've never waited literally for more than 2 minutes. So
that's very true upstate. And even downstate, in the downstate area, there's so many more petition polling places to go and vote, that even then you're not having immense lines that would somehow prevent people from being able to vote in one day.
Yeah, and there could have been other solutions if there was a couple spots that had long waits. Open more polling places.
Another easy option.
Yeah. Instead of saying, well, let's do early voting for the entire state. And I've asked the question, and I haven't crunched the numbers or seen someone crunch the numbers. It's okay. We saved money by moving the primaries and synchronizing them, so that's a savings. But early voting is going to add a cost. So what's the net? Are we coming out ahead or behind financially, the state?
Not just only the cost financially, which is a very real, and you're right. No one has asked that question. What are we paying for those extra 10 days, which is a lot because it's elections and you have lawyers involved. And so the costs just pile on top. But my other concern about that is, especially when you combine it with same day registration, the option for fraud just catapults up.
I agree. Yeah.
And that is another cost, because now we have to go through for 10 days instead of, say, 1 day. We have 10 days of having to check all the rolls and all the different ways now that people are going to be voting, and the same day voter registrations, looking for any potential fraud in there, which New York is known for. And that's another cost and another complication that just takes away the confidence of the public, I think.
Yes. A study I refer to frequently is a group called the Center for Public Integrity. Did a 50-state analysis in 2015. Mm-hmm. And anybody listening, you can Google that, Center for Public Integrity 2015 state report. And we were in I think we were 48th or 49th place in electoral oversight. And there was, you can expand that report and see a lot of the details, but just part of it, I think we make it so complicated in New York that the auditing and the oversight, you just can't have enough staff to do everything because we just make everything so complicated. And that seems to be true of the Empire State. Everything we do, we make complicated.
We make it too complicated. Nothing's a simple one step. And that's why you see so many problems. And I have to think that when Texas is identifying that there's 95,000 people who've been on their rolls illegally for years, how bad, and New York hasn't done a serious audit of its voter rolls, how bad is it in New York State? if Texas, which is pretty good and definitely better than New York, I can only imagine where we're at. It's got to be insane.
Well, and that's a sensitive topic for us right now because, like I said, Libertarian Party has been around. We've been enrolled as Libertarians
Right.
with our Board of Elections, but there's certainly been some sloppiness, and we're checking into that. We've got people saying that they've been bumped from Libertarian for years, and all of a sudden the local boards tell them they're a blank or they're other or not.
I've heard a lot of
properly
that.
enrolled, so we're certainly going through that ourselves. We see here we should be bumping up in our numbers, and we seem to have lost people. So certainly Larry Sharp, with the momentum he had last year, we've got to see growth. I mean, come on. So,
I would imagine so. I would imagine. And when I was speaking to Larry recently, he was very positive about the growth of the party going forward. He had a great conversation, and I would imagine you guys are going to do very well for several years going forward, especially as you're expanding more and more candidates throughout. And I do want to ask about that. But before we get to the candidates, let me briefly go over, there's been a lot of laws. We were talking about specifically election laws, but there's a couple of other laws that I'm wondering how the Libertarian Party is looking at that. In particular, one of my big ones is the Second Amendment. I am a huge Second Amendment advocate. We just saw the red flag laws, the 30-day wait just passed, literally this week that just passed. How does the party, or how do you see that?
The party is pretty unified about the Second Amendment. I think generally most of us, something like 80-90% of Libertarians don't even support background checks.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you find that the background check is just an obstacle to the person who's a law-abiding citizen, and the criminals don't follow it. So,
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of these rules, it's like you have to think, okay, it slows down and hurts the law-abiding citizen. What's it do for the criminal? And if it's not effective against the criminal, then it's an ineffective rule.
Always. That's one of my big arguments.
So, and I've even heard, interviews of FBI agents and such have said, the background checks are
limited in what they can do.
They're for show. I mean, they just, it's political posturing. It just doesn't seem like they're effective. So, I don't support the background checks. The extreme risk protection order, aka red flag laws, I think most of us Libertarians say it's really a violation of due process.
Absolutely.
Puts people in a position to be snitches. I mean, I think the SAFE Act made your doctor a snitch.
Yeah.
He's supposed to report you if you're showing any problems, and they take your guns away, which I think, in terms of mental health, and I've said this years ago when I ran for state senate, is that you're retarding people's incentive to go get help. If someone's a gun owner and they have mental health problems, are they going to give pause to going to seek treatment because they're afraid about their guns being taken away? I just think that's bad policy. And I think.
And now we have that in the schools. If your kid's tired or anything, your kid's mad at you because you didn't buy him the latest video game, now that may cause a teacher who has liability, because now they're liable. So the teacher sees that child, he's upset, doesn't know exactly that it's because it's a video game, didn't get it for his birthday. They're now going to have to go to the court and petition the court to take away your firearms, which is a silly reason. And I've never, in all of the cases of all the states that I have looked over for the last 10 years, I see there's no case that has ever not gotten the okay for a red flag. So they're going to come and take the kids, because that's a direct consequence. If it's too dangerous for you to have a firearm, it's too dangerous for you to have your kids. And so they're going to break up families, take away people's possessions, all because some kid is upset that he didn't get his favorite video game for his birthday. And that is a real scenario.
Yeah, that certainly could happen. That scenario described could certainly happen. Well, we've taken the cliche of if you see something, say something, which has a certain amount of merit, right?
Of course.
But now we say it's if you see something, you have to say something, or you're going to get in trouble. So you're creating, like you say, the liability, or you're mandating the teachers to say something. You're mandating that they go to the courts and say something, or they're liable and they're in trouble. So you really painting them in a corner and making them question their own judgment. And of course, they're going to have to err on the side of caution. Get a whole ruckus started when maybe it's not justified. And yeah, it just seems like a slippery slope.
Doesn't help anyone, because at the end of the day, you still, and I'll use the example of the Islamberg bomb plot, you still have people who are mentally challenged, to put it nicely, who have evil intentions, and they make bombs, which are illegal, and they don't hit any of the targets on the red flags or any of these laws, and they still do evil things because, like you said, criminals don't really care.
Yeah, I mean, just old-fashioned law enforcement is what finds those things, not these new concepts of intrusion and violation of our rights and due process. I just think, and then the police officers too. I think these more rules are just kind of wasting their time, in my opinion. So,
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Let's look at a different direction, education for a second. There was a recent law that was passed at the state level, which says that illegal aliens are able to get free college paid for by taxpayers. I've talked to several groups of students, a couple of them on recent podcasts, and I have heard no one who is in favor of this, and besides the politicians. And I'm wondering, how do you, as a libertarian or as a father, how do you feel about it?
I haven't talked too much to peers about this, but I would say going back several years, and generally the party, around the country is, we don't believe in handouts. So I didn't support the free education that New York came out with, even for New York residents, let alone legal aliens. So,
right.
And a point I made several years ago is that if you look at the average cost for going to SUNY, around 2/3 of that sometimes is room and board. And a point I made to a lot of people politically and friends and so on is like, get rid of the mandates to live on campus. I mean, a lot of the SUNY schools, it's mandated that you live on campus. My daughter went through this at Cortland. She had a mandated meal plan. She didn't use most of it and wasted money on that. And get rid of it. Make the dorms on campus compete with housing in the community. Mm-hmm. Make them compete against Subway and so on for meal plans.
Right.
So if 2/3 of the cost is that, why don't you allow more competition for that high cost? So
and
you're
bring
giving
that down.
Yeah, bring that down instead of saying, we'll give you free tuition. And the incentive of free tuition is it's going to hurt the trades. I work in the HVAC and controls business. I'm an engineer, but I'm a dirty hands engineer. I can go out there and do a lot of the field work too. We're trying to get more people in the trades. There's been a shortage in the trades since I started my career, 30-some years ago. And then the high schools are also being evaluated based on their placement in college.
Right.
So you're evaluating based on that, and now you're making college quote unquote free. Right. Which is another incentive. So you're directing more and more young people to a 4-year college education. Maybe they belong in a trade school, or maybe they're fit to just leave right out of high school and get a job. Maybe they can do something and grow and evolve there. And college is not for everyone.
Well, we've been focused on it too much. We have a direct need, and you probably know this better than most, but because you work in the field and you see it, we are in a massive dearth of electricians, plumbers, machinists. We are carpenters. We need our trades, and everyone's been told don't go there, and that's going to really hurt our nation within the next 5 years.
I mean, I'm 55 and I have young kids, so I'm going to be working, probably till 70 or beyond. But a lot of people I work with, they're my age or older. There's just bundles and bundles, like you say, of electricians and HVAC techs and carpenters that are 55, 60, going to be retiring in the next 5 to 10 years, and there's going to be, shortage has been bad for 30 years. It's just going to be a lot worse.
Yeah, that's going to be insane. And that, talk about infrastructure. There's the infrastructure we really need to focus on. So that we've covered a couple of things on the state level. And perhaps this is a good, and I should mention, because I don't want to leave this out, but you're also looking at an election on a local level. Am I right?
Yes, I'm planning to run, or am running for Town of Owego Council this year. It's a 4-year term, and they run them in odd years. There's 4 members. So in 2017, I ran against 2, and then now the different 2. They split it up, so every cycle, every odd year cycle, they have
another race
2.
goes.
Yeah, so you never have all 4 people changed at once and have 4 new inexperienced people potentially coming on the council. So it's a good way to split it up. Yeah, so it's a good strategy. And so many elected offices anymore are just 2-year terms. So this is a 4-year term, which is good just to reduce the time and effort to go out and run all the time.
Yeah, you don't have to be.
Office,
don't always have to constantly campaign. You can actually do the job.
Do the job. Yeah.
Which is a big difference. And I know that's something that you're always very involved. You're always up to date about a lot of the things that are going on and a lot of the concerns. Are any of the things I was just mentioning at the state level, are those concerns for the city of Owego?
Town of Owego, not so much. Local government has its issues, state has its issues, and federal has far too many things that it's doing.
Right.
We can talk about federalism another time. I mean, the federal government, in my opinion, is just 95% of what it's doing. It shouldn't be doing at all. But the town, I got to give credit to the town. The town of Owego is pretty reasonable. Our residents, for the most part, are pretty, libertarian, so to speak, in how they want to live their lives. They want to be left alone. Low taxes, low regulation, interference from local government. So,
I think most people agree with that mentality, regardless of whatever party they may officially be in or what they think. I think most people agree. Keep the government out of my life. There's certain things it should do, and I should live my life. I think most people agree with you on that.
Well, I think if it tends to, as you get into bigger and bigger political subdivisions, it just seems like it's people gravitate to what they want. So the big cities tend to be more in favor of big government because the people that live there tend to be in favor of big government.
True.
And in the towns, the people that live there tend to be in favor of smaller government, less intrusive. So I think that pattern plays, not only in New York, but pretty much
everywhere.
Probably everywhere in the world. I think so. That's how you end up with places like New York City that just become more and more and more progressive in their politics and central planning and so on, and to our detriment. That's what hurts when we lose population upstate. The leverage of New York City just keeps getting stronger, and us little towns upstate just keep losing our leverage.
Which is a shame, especially since now that's affecting, and I left this out, the AIM funding, AIM, which is basically just a funding from the state to the smaller municipalities. And I believe there's about 60,000 towns that are going to be affected, losing roughly 2% of their funding from the state. It's crazy.
I wrote about this on Facebook a few weeks ago. So all the small towns that have been able to run on a minimum amount of AIM are getting it cut to 0. That's what was proposed, to cut it to 0. All the cities were unaffected. So
Oddly enough.
So when I talk about concentration, So the governor was saying, I'm going to, the political spin on it was, pretty easy to see through.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, so obviously you're giving everybody that's more Democrat leaning miraculously is keeping their money, and people that are more small government leaning, they're getting cut. But it's not political.
Yeah. Essentially, the 3 cities that voted for him and gave him the election, you get to keep your money. Everyone else who voted against him, well, kind of sorry.
It was a farce.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. But he's trying to get away with that. Is that gonna, if it continues and it goes through like it's expected, is that going to have a big impact on the city of Owego? Town of Owego?
I haven't heard many advice about that. I don't think we're that dependent on that money.
That's good. That's good news.
And like I said, the people that are least dependent on it are the ones that are being cut, which I've said also is a bad message, because the towns that are using more of it and are more dependent on it, to me that's saying that maybe they're not as fiscally thrifty as they should be. Mm-hmm. And you're rewarding that bad behavior by continuing to give all the money that they've been getting. And then the little town, the towns that have been more responsible and using less AIM, mm-hmm. punishing them. So it's kind of a no good deed goes unpunished strategy.
Yeah,
Even if you look beyond the political obvious problems, the towns that are using less get cut to zero. The towns that are using more get to keep it. What kind of signal does that send to thriftiness? It tells you don't be thrifty with this money. Keep spending as much as you can, so you keep getting it. That's a bad message.
Fiscal responsibility goes out the window when you're suddenly saying spend it all. It's like, well, that's not necessarily a smart way. That doesn't help your debt go down when you're just spending crazy, which state government just doesn't seem to understand. What are the big issues in the town of Owego for the city council to look at?
Well, a few of my pet peeves are related to land use regulation, and again, we're pretty decent. Our town. I don't want us to stay that way because there's a lot of pressure around the country to get worse. For one is zoning laws. Mm-hmm. I'm a big fan of either abolishing them completely or doing more mixed use zoning and just letting people do what they want as much.
It's your land. You
do what you want.
Right.
Development is a pain if you got to go to 10 zoning board of appeals meeting to get a project approved. That really hurts the ability to build. So and that drives up prices. I mean, in the town, we're certainly in much of New York State, we're not in a high growth mode, but in parts of the country where you see zoning laws that are way too aggressive, it drives property values way up, and it's impossible to build, and it's unaffordable. I call it a Ponzi scheme because the people have had the good fortune of already building a home. Their home values appreciating because of this NIMBY, not my backyard palace. No, let's not build anything anywhere. No one build anything anywhere. John Stossel has a good term for it. He calls it bananas now. So NIMBY is not in my backyard.
Right.
The new slogan or the new acronym BANANA means build absolutely nothing anywhere near anyone. Banana. just don't build anything anywhere.
Right.
So that's like to the extreme. You just don't let anyone build anything anywhere because I want my property to appreciate. I don't care about anyone else.
Yeah, it doesn't matter whether it would help or not.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And it is that kind of way here in New York State where we have so many laws that seem to be counterproductive to the end goal of benefiting the people the politicians are supposed to serve. It just seems like there's no end to that, this insanity of it.
Well, I appreciate the rights of all residents in the town and any city or anywhere should have equal voting rights, but in the towns, I think in particular, they try to favor the home voter. The home voter means the owner of the single family home that comes out to vote, and I think they vote more reliably in the odd years and off presidential years than many of the other voters. So I think that creates a political bias. That's why some of these rules, zoning laws, code enforcement, and so on, get to be abusive. Is that they basically become a block and a special interest, and just the politicians have to be fair and balanced in what they do, and don't let homeowners obstruct everybody else because they want their property values to appreciate.
Just got to hit that balance between the two of development for the good of everyone and appreciating that individual's property.
Well, again, the libertarian perspective with land ownership and land development is like you do whatever you want unless and until you might infringe upon others. So to a degree, noise ordinances, if you're in a residential neighborhood, don't make something extremely noisy that's going to bother your neighbors. Maybe there's some sense to that. But even in the case of industry, industry's gotten so much cleaner. But I think there's merit to mixed use, even with industry nearby residences, because there's eyes on it there. If you go build an industrial park and shove all the industrial development off in a corner somewhere, they can better get away with pollution because
no one's there to
notice it. So whereas if it's mixed use, look at IBM. It was kind of built in the middle of Endicott.
Yeah.
So. And we did have our problems with the toxic plume.
I was going to bring it up.
Yeah, let's face it, that was quite a problem. But for years and years, it was a pretty clean plant.
And we have a lot of different safeguards now that weren't even considered then.
Oh yeah.
So.
Yep. And that plume was, that was definitely, the shame on them. And that was more than just a spill. That was an underground leak that sustained itself for a long time. Somebody knew about it, and
they just let it go. And,
that was.
And no one could notice it then, but we have technology now that would have picked up on it a lot faster.
Yeah. But I think, mixed use, even mixing commercial, residential, industrial, I think there's just a lot of benefits to just letting people build what they want, where they want, until they really are, just doing something that's really, outlandish.
So a laissez-faire kind of attitude towards to government in general, do no harm, almost like the doctor's mantra, do no harm.
Right. Yeah, have liability if people do something and pollute or somehow cause damage to their neighbors. You have liability, but other than that, you should allow as much liberty and freedom as possible for people to do what they want. One specific rule that's affected me for years now is the signage law in New York State, or in the town of Owego, is a little silly because it's a 3 square foot maximum if you want to have a sign out for a small business that you run out of your home. And that's one problem, but the worst issue is it's got to be 25 feet back from the street line. Well, the street line is 25 feet from the center of the road. So your sign has to be 50 feet back from the center of the road if you run a small business in your home in the town of Owego.
That's going to be a little hard to see.
It's going to be a little hard to see. And in some cases, it's so ridiculous, the sign's going to have to be inside your house. So, that rule I'd like to see changed to make it 2 feet or 5 feet. Basically, where your mailbox is, you ought to be able to put a sign. If you got a small business in your home, you ought to be able to put a sign out where your mailbox is.
Which makes sense.
Make it visible.
That's the whole point of it anyway. You want it visible.
Yeah, you're trying to keep money local. You're trying to, keep money circulating within the local region. Every town is kind of competing against everybody else for their income and revenue. It's like a lot of people have little side businesses out of their homes to make a little extra money. So why don't you make it easier for them to advertise and throw a sign up? Putting a sign up is the most easiest easiest way to advertise, especially if you're on a street like in the Appalachian near me, Pennsylvania Avenue. Lots of traffic there. If someone's running a little gun shop or something, or a barber shop out of their home, let them put a sign up close, so
right over by the mailbox, and everyone can see it and drive past, and it doesn't really destroy anything. It's one of those things New York State needs to focus on. Simple. Let people grow businesses, small businesses, let them flourish, let them grow, do the simple things. Because doing the really big things like the Amazon billions of dollars, which I'm totally against and so upset about, doesn't work to help people. Take the $3 billion. Imagine if they gave to the city of Owego $100 million out of that $3 billion that they gave to Amazon, and let all of this businesses in the town of Owego develop. You'd have small businesses everywhere, I'd like to think.
Yeah, how about just lowering our taxes?
There you go. That too. Yeah.
Instead of just lower our taxes and let us do it on our own. We don't need the state to help us. So all these crony capitalist incentives. It seems like you take a lot of tax dollars. In fact, John Stossel just had an article in the newspaper today. Just read a couple hours ago. It's about subsidizing football stadiums. So you take a lot of money from people via taxes, and then you incentivize, building something. And you're going to hear about this tomorrow at the Super Bowl.
Right.
So you hear about, look at this stadium and all this economic development, all this boom. It's like, that's the plus. But what would all those people that you took taxes from have used their money for?
Otherwise,
you have what's seen, but you don't have what's unseen. It's the old, the broken window fallacy. So you break it, you break a window and that helps the economy. It's like, but the guy would have bought a suit if he didn't break his window. So you can't rationalize taking money from people. And if you take taxes from people, you're hurting them economically. They can't spend that on something they'd rather do with it to give it to somebody else. You're determining the winning. The government then is determining the winners, no losers.
It's always been, we've heard for 2-3 decades that we needed to lower the business taxes. We needed to lower consumer taxes. Everyone promised it. When it finally happened, we're now in a growth in our economy, both on the state and national level, more so on the national level than here in New York. But we've seen business grow. We've seen a boom. It just makes sense. That makes a lot more sense than let's raise the taxes again, which hasn't worked for 3 decades. And we know that. Why go back to that plan when we have one that's working, at least until it stops working? Let it go. I think it's basic economics there. And I think you agree with me on that. And I think most of the people in the town of Owego would agree with that too.
Yeah, I would think, again, we're small government-minded people. We're not expecting government to come and save us and help us. We want to just be left alone to prosper on our own. We don't need Big Daddy, whether it's the state, the town of Owego. We just leave us alone. We'll prosper on our own. We don't need the help of government.
Absolutely. I know, Owego's very close. It's in Tioga County, which is right next to Broome County and not too far from Binghamton, New York. I know you've come out to the studio, which I'm very happy for, and it's always good to see you, so I always enjoy that. Let me ask, but I have to admit, I'm not intimately aware with all of the politics and all the issues in the town of Owego. Some, but not all. Is there anything else that we've missed, or something that people in Tioga County and Owego, or even in Broome, any of the issues, either in dealing with the race or just in general for the Libertarian Party as well, that you want to cover that are important to cover right now?
Well, I think the important thing I should mention today is the sensitive topic now of the shared services facility that we're building.
Okay.
It's several $1 million. A lot of contention among the public. Honestly, I haven't looked at the drawings and specs. I know a company that I'm pretty close with in my day job was a low bidder on the plumbing, so I'm going to call them and see. You think there's a lot of fat here? Multi-billion-dollar building, and I guess a lot of things that some of the residents have said are maybe not necessary for function. But I got to see too if the contracts have been awarded. There could be lawsuits if we try to cancel a project now or downscale it. It's a shame we didn't maybe get out in front of this quicker. Last year I had so much to do as political director. I didn't really watch this, and I didn't really hear much about it until just a few weeks ago. And it was bid, I think, in November. So
kind of late for the bidding, yeah.
Yeah, the bidding's been a couple months, so I'm just afraid now the contracts have been awarded. I don't know. I'll have to see where we're going with that. But that's definitely a major concern right now with a lot of the residents. I helped build the shared services facility in Schuyler County, Watkins Glen.
Right.
I did the temperature controls in the building. Well, we built it once. It was a pre-engineered metal building. Those are pretty low cost to build. They had an office section with a mezzanine and gas-fired radiant heating out in the Bay Area. They did not put in fire sprinklers.
What?
And it was shared between the water department, the county police, and then the south end of it was the highway garage.
Okay.
Well, you know where I'm going when I say no sprinklers.
Automatically, first thing.
So they had a electrical fire in a truck, and it made a mess of the place. It didn't burn the whole building down. There was just a lot of smoke damage, and they made some mistakes in smoke wall separation. They tried to use fiberglass insulation to isolate smoke, which smoke just blows right through it from fire pressure. So it contaminated the office area with the smoke, so they had to rebuild that. Contaminated the electrical room, which was double sheetrock, but they stopped at the
ceiling
and didn't realize that the fire was smoke. And so they little goof there in the engineering that should have caught that, but. So they made a mess of it, had to be rebuilt. I did the controls the second time and rebuilt it. When they rebuilt it, they put in sprinklers. They also put in firewalls to separate the highway garage from other parts of the building.
Makes sense.
But this building was reasonable construction. I mean, it was functional. It wasn't exotic. And pre-engineered metal building is about the least expensive you can have. It wasn't anything too exotic. I don't think there's really a lot of excess space or frills in that building. Right. I haven't seen the plans yet for Owego. I'm just hearing there's locker rooms. Do we really need locker rooms for this type of facility? There's no locker rooms at the Watkins Glen building. I mean, Schuyler County, I'd have to look at the population, but Schuyler County's similar in size.
Comparable.
To,
it's comparable.
Watkins Glen versus Owego, probably comparable. So,
yeah.
So there's a lot of comparison there, but their facility seems like they're more reasonable with it, and I think there might be some fluff here that in the Town of Owego facility that we could do without. But again,
sadly, there's not enough people.
Sorry I didn't get into it sooner. I wish I got into it a year ago. Started looking at the drawings then. But
it should be more people looking at this than just a few of us. But the nice thing is that you are looking at being part of the town council and being able to see these things sooner to catch some of the excesses when they do happen, or at least get justification for why they're necessary.
Yeah, the town meeting a few weeks ago, it was a contested vote. It was a 3-2 vote to approve this project. So this wasn't a 5-0 vote. It was just
there's some problems there.
Yeah, so the supervisor Don Castellucci had to cast the swing vote. So it wasn't it was a contested vote to pass this. And maybe it's not too late. Maybe there still could be a scale back. I'm just concerned if contracts have been awarded to the all the contractors, in Wick's law, New York State, separate prime contractors. You've got electrical, plumbing, site work, mechanical, general. So there's if a lot of them have been written already, then there could be a lot of grief and lawsuits if they try to cancel them now. But
those are the problems with government. Once you start getting into the contracts and what you can and can't do to correct something that may be an obvious problem, like sprinklers that someone oversighted, that is going to come back and cost you money. Absolutely, no question, you're going to have to build that at some point. So, the sooner you find it, the better, before you have the problems and have to jury rig and redo everything. But I do want to thank you. I know we've been going about 42 minutes here, 45. So we're over a little bit of time, but that's always a good thing when it's a good conversation. And I enjoy that. And I hope the people in town of Owego and Tioga and Broome and Southern Tier and all the libertarians that they'll enjoy it as well. I think they will. So it's always a good conversation with you. I do want to wish you the best. I want to follow up on this election. I've been out in Owego before following some of the elections there, and I always find it very interesting, some of the conversations and some of the things you guys have to deal with. So I definitely want to come on down, and we'll make a day of it. We'll come out. I believe there's another libertarian who's in the race with you. Is that right?
Correct. Yep. And that's good because this is a pick two race. And I found in 2017 people may have voted for me and then randomly picked one of the incumbents, which kind of neutralized their vote for me.
Right.
But people don't want to leave their ballot short, so a lot of times they will randomly pick someone they might not know. So this time, Jennifer Taylor's going to be running also as Libertarian. So people have a choice to vote two Libertarians against the two incumbents. So if they like both of us, then they can vote for both of us. That's helps both of us, to have us both be on the ballot. So.
Absolutely. So if someone wants to check out more information about you and this race, and also for Jennifer, where would they go?
I got a forward domain registered for both of us. So it's Jennifer and Rich for towncouncil.com. I think I'm saying that. Jennifer and Rich for towncouncil.com. And
that's a long one.
Yeah, that will forward to Purtell for Owego Town Council.com. That's the original Nation Builder account I had 2 years ago. So the first domain just forward to the second one.
Okay, so the second one would be Purtell for
Owego Town Council. Yep.
Okay, so either one of those.
And you can find us on Facebook. She has a page going on Facebook. I have a page going on Facebook for our campaign. So
okay, is there a Twitter?
No, I have a personal Twitter account, but nothing for the campaign.
Okay. Well, you never know until you ask. So, and if I didn't ask you, I guarantee someone would contact me and ask me, saying, "Why didn't you say that?" I wanted to know.
I have a LinkedIn account, again, personal. You can look for me, Rich Purtell, on LinkedIn. I have 3,000 connections or so on LinkedIn.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, quite a few. It's a lot of business associates. So I'm wearing multiple hats. So my LinkedIn profile and discussions. A lot have to do with HVAC and controls.
So behave yourselves, folks.
As well as the politics. But it's about 80% probably my day job, 20% politics on LinkedIn.
So people should be respectful of that when they go to the LinkedIn page, because people have to work.
We all have to make a living somehow. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else I missed, or anything else?
No, you did a good job. It was pleasure to be here as always, and look forward to maybe having another time together. And I hope Jennifer does well with you tomorrow. You're talking to her tomorrow, so
yes, I am.
We really appreciate your efforts to give us a voice in the region.
Always my pleasure. Always my pleasure to do that.
Yeah, the Libertarian Party. A lot of people may not know it's the third largest party in the United States, but we've got some ways to go to get to number 3 in New York. But I think with what Larry did last year, we're going to see some rapid growth now.
I think so. It's definitely been very positive news from everywhere I've heard. New York's just a unique little situation. But with that, let me say that I thank you for the time here today and to learn about what's going on in the town of Owego and just your thoughts overall on the state of New York as we go forward, and the Libertarian Party especially. And for everyone else, I thank you for listening in, because you guys, I appreciate each and every one of you. You are wonderful, and I thank you for that. Please, everyone, be safe. It's cold out there, bad wind chill. Stay indoors if you can. Be careful on the roads. And other than that, I want you all to be well. I thank you very much.